Across 1,000 years of war, loyalty, migration, faith, and survival, one family moved through the shifting landscapes of medieval Europe and the emerging Atlantic world. From Norman courts to Celtic frontiers, from royal service to colonial hardship, the Payne family stood at the crossroads of history. You are listening to Domesday to America, a prosopographical history of the Payne family from the early Middle Ages to the Atlantic world.
Welcome back to In Depth with Academia. I'm Richard Price, founder and CEO of Academia.edu, and as always, I'm here to dig into the latest academic research, remember with total neutrality, so you can explore and reflect without having to read a mountain of journals yourself. Today's episode centres on a super intriguing paper by Patrick Payne. It's titled The Hostage Theory, From Niall of the Nine Hostages to Ranulf the Moneyer. Wow, right? Gotta love a good medieval mystery. So, what is the big question here? Well, Payne is wrestling with a mystery that's part genealogy, part genetics, and part medieval storytelling flair. Why does the Payne, or sometimes spelled Payne, family, historically believed Norman or continental in origin, carry a Y DNA signature that is decidedly Celtic? We're talking ancient Irish and Scottish connections. The research specifically spotlights the RL21 DF13 haplogroup, which, if you know your genetic genealogy, is often linked to the legendary High King of Ireland, Niall of the Nine Hostages. That's wild, right? So, how can a supposedly Norman family be genetically so Celtic? And here's why this matters, because it challenges what we can or should assume from, surnames, coats of arms, and those thick old books stuffed with medieval charters. If you're listening and your own family history feels like a puzzle, or if you're just fascinated by how cultures blend and identities form, this stuff, it's like intellectual catnip. All right, a bit of a digression here. Does anyone else ever get stuck in those late-night internet spirals, reading about their distant ancestors, and suddenly you're convinced you're descended from a Viking or, I don't know, a minor lord who lost his castle in a dice game? No, just me. Okay, back to the Paynes. The core argument of Payne's paper is that the Payney family is more than just another Norman imported name. There's a story about cultural cross-pollination, rooted in both blood and bureaucracy. The first step is the medieval phenomenon of political hostage-giving, a little used but crucial custom where elite families traded their sons as living guarantees of peace or alliance. The genetic evidence of a Celtic Y-DNA line in the Paynes might trace back to these hostage exchanges. Fascinating, huh? So who's the main historical figure at the centre of this? Ranulf the Moneyer, a high-ranking official in England around the time of the Norman conquest. He minted coins at Roxburgh and Berwick, both border towns rich with both Gaelic and Anglo-Danish influences. Interesting blend. Ranulf had sons, Walaran, Osborne, and possibly a Payne. Here's where it gets twisty. A user in a genealogy forum noticed that Ranulf's sons' names, particularly Osborne, match up with names from the powerful de Crépon family of Normandy. You've got Herfast, Osborne de Crépon. These are names with serious continental cachet. But hang on. Payne's paper isn't saying that Ranulf was for sure a member of that Norman kin group, or that every Payne descends directly from Niall of the Nine Hostages himself. It's all framed as possibilities, not gospel truths. The argument is that through a combination of genetics, geographic placement, naming patterns, and social roles, like coin minting, administration, and sometimes ecclesiastical work, there's a strong case the Paynes emerged at the confluence of Celtic and Norman worlds. Let's break this down. Okay, real talk. If you're a listener who, say, is interested in your own family roots, what does this mean for you? First, it's a clear example that identity is rarely a straight line. You can look Norman, sound English, but carry the genes of an Irish king, or at least of a Gaelic warrior class. Second, it shows how historical migrations and political marriages can echo for 1,000 years in both our documents and our DNA. And honestly, it highlights the importance of not treating any old record as the last word, right? Nothing in academia is set in metaphorical stone. Evidence is always open for reinterpretation. But back to Payne's argument, the successive appearances of Payneys in Domesday Book in places like Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, Somerset, Dorset, Cornwall, Wales, later moving into Norfolk, London, and even Ireland, are not random. They fit the pattern of a well-connected, hybrid elite, a family at home both in the Celtic fringe and in Norman administrative circles. The hostage theory suggests these networks were not just about politics, but left a literal genetic legacy. So what's the main takeaway here? Payne offers a model, not a final answer, suggesting that families like the Paynes blur the line between Norman and Celtic. They're both. Their DNA, their names, their recorded professions all make that pretty clear. This isn't about rewriting history, it's about re-examining it and asking yourself who gets to decide what counts as origin, and should we ever settle for easy answers? All right, as always, I want to underscore, these aren't my theories. I'm not endorsing the argument, just sharing Payne's fascinating research with you. Use it as a springboard, maybe to dig into your own family roots, or just to rethink what it means to belong to a culture, a nation, even a family. Thanks for joining me today on In Depth with Academia. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and, hey, maybe try a DNA test if you're feeling brave. See you next time.
If you have ever wondered how a single lineage can illuminate the rise of kingdoms, the fall of dynasties, the migrations of peoples, and the endurance of identity across continents, you are in the right place. Welcome to the journey.